Hello, uh, good afternoon. You're welcome to this short PowerPoint presentation. My name is Cyrus. I'm with my colleague Charity Wamani, and we are students at Uganda Christian University pursuing our master's degree in agrobusiness management and entrepreneurship. Tonight, we want to look at a few concepts here as regarding managerial and business economics. And our concept number one, we want to look at total physical product, and we are saying it's the output that is produced from the farmer's fixed inputs and a specified level of variable inputs. So the concept looks at only two things. It looks at the output vis-a-vis the inputs in terms of factors of production, and of course it also being specific that's looking at fixed input and variable inputs. So for example, we can say fixed input could be land, because in any business it doesn't change in a short time. It will change for a long period of time, so it's categorized under fixed input. And maybe variable input could be varying, and one of them could be labor. The other related important concepts under this, one of it is average product, and we are saying it's the output per unit of a factor input. And the third one could be marginal product, and we're saying it's the additional output produced as a result of additional unit of a variable input. In other words, it's looking at levels of output vis-a-vis the unit additionals that have been incurred for us to produce a product or a service. We got up with a table here having showing some values and bringing a little bit the picture of the relationship between the three closer to our attention. And when you look here, we picked land, and it's having a constant value. We also picked labor that is varying at different intervals, TPP, APP, and MP. But then when you look at this graph, it brings the picture clearly of the three parameters that we are looking at, and you see TPP taking a very different direction, and marginal product and average product having some similarities in one or the other in their growth curves. And maybe this relationship can be clearly explained in this slide. So we are saying to determine the best levels of input variables and the total physical product, we have to look at these similar relationship graphs that stipulates and clearly describes the relationship of these three parameters. So when you look at the first graph, we have total product on this axis and units of input factor on this axis. And this graph is under three phases, phase 1 and phase 2. So there is a lot happening in every phase, you know. And just below the first graph, of course, it's 2 in 1. There is average product and marginal product, and how the unit input factor affect the relationship of these two parameters. So we are saying total product increases from point 0 to B. Okay, from point 0 to B, from 0 to B, total product increases. Okay, increases, and there are two phases of increase. So we are saying that two phases of increase, phase 1 and phase 2. Okay, so we are saying total physical product in phase 1 from 0 to point A. Okay, from 0 to point A, from 0 to point A, it increases at an increasing rate, and while at the lower part of the diagram, marginal product increases up to point C. So we are saying while this one is increasing from point 0 to B, marginal product also increases from 0 to point C. That's what we are saying. But then at the same time, we are saying, so we can conclude that when marginal product is increasing, total physical product increases at increasing rate. But while in phase 3, the increase of total physical product from point A to B, the increase is at diminishing rate. What are we talking about? That while in this second phase here, the increase of total physical product increases but at diminishing rate. You can see the curve curving towards the end. Curving towards the end. That's what the relationship we are describing here. Okay, but at diminishing rate. And the lower diagram, marginal product decreases from point C to D but remains positively. So you can see the lower diagram, from point C to D there is a decrease, but we are saying at diminishing rate. And at the lower diagram still, marginal product decreases from point C to D, but at the positive, but remains positive. So we can also draw a conclusion and say, when the marginal physical product falls but still positive, total physical product increases at diminishing rate, and at that point B, total physical product is at maximum in the lower diagram. So marginal product is at 0 and at point B. So we can also draw another conclusion and say, when marginal physical product is 0, total physical product is at maximum. That's the relationship we are describing here. And we can of course also say that in the third phase after point B, of course in the third phase after point B, we are saying when total physical product falls and after point D, marginal physical product becomes negative and total physical product also falls. It also falls. So in a nutshell, we would say at that point R, it gives us the base unit of the input variable of the total physical product, because any other additional unit of input will have a less effect on the total product than the previous one. That's the conclusion we can draw in the relationship we have just seen previously. Thank you for that slide, and want to quickly take you into another concept here. I want to talk about input costs and the returns, of course. And we are saying input costs are the set of costs incurred to create a product or service. In several examples of them here. One is a direct cost, another one is indirect. We're saying direct costs are made by cash payment for employment, various factors of production. This could be labor, material, overheads, and the other costs among others. We're saying direct costs, which also the firm sacrifices in order to hire an alternative factor of production, can be also categorized under direct costs. So we have also input costs having another issue here of fixed costs, and these do not change in a short term. They are fixed. Remember, we talked about land. Variable costs, we have also talked an example here about labor. These costs both change in short term and long term, and also have total cost expenditures that incurred by producer to produce his good or services. These also can be categorized under the total cost, and with the formula, as you can see, cost per unit times quantity produced. We have also average costs, marginal costs, accounting costs, economic costs, number of them. We'll also draw a graph here to bring the relationship closer of what we are talking about, the unit cost versus quantity, and we have issues element of prices here. Costs come in here, of course, marginal costs, average total cost, and marginal revenue. And when you look at this graph, you will see clearly the relationship of these costs, how they affect each other, and when do we reach the equilibrium, and when does supply affect the market, and when do we make profits, and when does marginal costs affect. Want to look at this whole relationship to see. And when you look at here, we have point B and point A. All right. So you follow me to the next slide for a clear. We're saying profits are maximized when marginal costs are equivalent to marginal revenue at point A. Follow me back. At point A, we are saying marginal costs are equivalent to marginal revenue. And at this point, we can realize the profits. That's what we are saying. And we are saying also cost individual supply is drawn from the quantity point and determined at the average total cost curve. Get to the cost per unit. So at the point B, prices are equal to cost, implying that 0 profits are made. And that's, I think, true. And if more producers enter the market, in other words, if producers keep bringing in more supplies in the market, definitely it will make the price to get down. Remember how demand and supply, the law of demand and supply. And you're saying when supply is at high levels, demand will keep reducing and prices definitely will also be affected. That's what we are saying here. So further interest of producers result into cost because to price, which will eventually result into cost being greater than price if producers enter is not, if producers entry is not limited. So we're also saying in the market there are shutdown points at which a firm must close business in the case of prices below the point. And if that happens, then we get to this curve and see when prices get below the cost, definitely this business will be running into loss, and at this point we will advise the firm or the business to close, because there are no profits to be realized here. Remember, costs will be now higher than the price, and you can see the shaded part in maybe faint pink or orange color, or revealing that at this moment the business cannot make any profit. Then you will have to close the business. That's the relationship we wanted to also share with you under this concept. I want us to talk about returns here, and we are saying a return is also known as a return on investment. It is simply termed as money you receive from an investment. As simple as that. There's no any other complicated or sophisticated definition to get to the concept of returns. We're just saying money that you receive from an investment. Maybe you have invested 1 million Ugandan shillings, and now at the end of the transaction or the business, you realize you have 2 million. So what we said that your return on investment is 1 million. In other words, the unique part of it is that these returns can be quantified in percentages, or they can also be presented in terms of ratios. Okay, in terms of ratios. And also what is important to learn under this concept is that heavy ventures or risky ventures require heavy investment into them. Okay, they also require heavy investment in them since they are risky ventures. Yeah, so the higher the risk, the bigger the investment, and the greater the return expectation for that very same matter. And the vice versa is true for that very same concept. So return can also be presented as a net result after fee, tax, and inflation, or gross return that do not account for anything but price changes. Okay, so we could be having interest, and this is earned on investment like saving accounts, bond, among others. We have also dividends and the returns, and some businesses pay dividends which give investors a share of what the company makes. And also, of course, capital gains, and these are investors who sell a product from his investment at a price higher than what it costs. All right, I want us to talk about what is duality. What's duality? And we're saying duality refers to the relationship between quantities and prices that rise as a consequence of the hypothesis. It's a consequence of a hypothesis. It can also be relating to its to a consumer theory, and it can be an alternative way of looking at consumer utility maximization decision. Okay, so it can also be a local relationship, a logical relationship between utility and expenditure functions. You know, we want to measure a relationship between utility and expenditure functions of a consumer. The concept of duality can also be applied around here, and this can only be caused by a slight or a skilled trickle with the first order condition. So duality can measure relationship may be naturally a product of colors, but while examining the consumer theory, we can examine the behavior in terms of maximization of utility subject to money, income, budget constraints, or minimizing expenditure, or even costs which are subjected to utility constraints. So that's the element of duality for you there. I want to talk about another concept as I wind up. This is production function and its inverse. Yes, and we are saying production function is a mathematical presentation showing the relationship between the input and output. Remember, we have been talking about these relationships from the first concept that we talked about. So the production function looks at, it's a mathematical representation showing a relationship between inputs and outputs of a firm, and can produce efficiently. Okay, and produce efficiently. Yes. So the function consider the four major factors of production, namely land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. There is a mathematical expression here, a formula which can be represented as Q equals to F K L, or Q equals to K plus L k plus L. Remember, we are saying it is an inversion. It's an inverse. It's an inverse. Okay, it's an inverse. So where L is labor, K is capital investment, Q is output. Okay, is output. We can have an example working here to bring the mathematical picture very well. So for example, if fx equals to 3x minus 8, or let's consider fy equals to 3y minus 8. So we will do a mathematical working that will say y equals to 3x minus 8, and at the same time also for the inverse we'll also say that x is equals to 3y minus 8. All right, so when you follow this mathematical inverse, you find out that x plus 8 equals to 3y minus 8 plus 8. And we will find out that x plus 8 over 3 equals to y, and at the same time y plus 8 divided by 3 equals to x. So f1 x equals to x plus 8 over 3, and f1 equals to y plus 8 divided by 3. That's what we are talking about. That's what we are talking about. So back to the production function Q equals to FKL. It replaces y, which will be equals to fx. That's the inverse that we are talking about. So if you look at my last slide here for mathematical exploration, which we have tried to come up, I hope what will also be understanding that where W is the price and WR is the price stock rate and Q equals to quantity of output, if we wanted to solve such an equation, we would say change in cost over change in demand over change in cost equals to LQ plus Q into brackets R divided by W and the squaring half. Remember, we are talking about inverse. So following this mathematical expression as they are, you'll find that Q into brackets K plus L over K plus L equals to LK over K plus L. That's an inverse of that mathematical expression. And so Q is equals to LK over K plus L. It is the same thing here. It's the same thing here. Thank you for listening, and I believe that this has shed a little bit more light into our understanding. Thank you.